Last week, I told you about 12 books they don't want you to read. Today, we dive into the one that gave us the vocabulary to recognize oppression in real time. George Orwell's 1984 wasn't supposed to be an instruction manual, yet here we are, living in a world where Big Brother isn't just watching. You paid for the cameras yourself. This book was banned in the Soviet Union, remains forbidden in North Korea, and is still challenged in schools across America. Why? Because once you understand Orwell's mechanics of control, you can't unsee them operating everywhere. Think about this. When Orwell wrote about telescreens that watch you back, he imagined bulky government installations. He never imagined you'd voluntarily carry one in your pocket, pay monthly for the privilege, and panic when the battery dies. When he wrote about the memory hole where inconvenient facts disappear, he couldn't have predicted the internet, where information doesn't vanish but drowns in noise, where truth doesn't get erased but gets versioned until nobody knows what really happened. The methods evolved, but the blueprint remains identical. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how 1984's control mechanisms operate in your daily life, not in some distant dystopia, but right now in ways so normalized you don't even notice them. We'll decode doublethink in corporate speak and political rhetoric. We'll identify newspeak in language policing and term redefinition. We'll recognize thought crimes in cancel culture and social credit systems. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools to spot these patterns instantly. But here's what makes this essential viewing. 1984's greatest revelation isn't about surveillance or censorship. It's about how external control becomes internal surrender. How oppression transforms into love for the oppressor. How 2 + 2 = 5, but only when you genuinely believe it. If you're ready to understand the playbook being used against you daily, watch until the end. And if this video helps you see clearly, share it quickly. Content about 1984's modern applications has a strange habit of being deprioritized by algorithms. Let's dive in.
The architecture of Big Brother from telescreens to smartphones.
When Orwell described telescreens, he imagined devices that could watch and listen to citizens constantly, installed by a totalitarian government against people's will. Today's reality is far more elegant and insidious. You stood in line to buy your telescreen. You upgrade it every 2 years for better cameras and microphones. When it breaks, you feel genuine anxiety. The surveillance state didn't need to force anything. They just made it convenient, entertaining, and socially necessary. Your smartphone knows where you are, what you're reading, who you're with, what you're saying, and increasingly what you're thinking based on what you almost typed but deleted. But here's the genius twist Orwell didn't predict. We've become willing participants in our own surveillance. We live stream our locations, photograph our meals, document our thoughts, and upload our faces to improve facial recognition algorithms. The thought police don't need to investigate. We confess preemptively on social media. We tag ourselves at locations, saving Big Brother the trouble. We argue about privacy settings while fundamentally accepting that privacy is negotiable. The telescreen won not through force, but through features. The modern Big Brother isn't a singular dictator, but a distributed system of corporate and government interests that may or may not be coordinating. Amazon's Alexa listens in your home, Google tracks your searches, Facebook maps your relationships, your smart TV watches you back, and your car reports your driving patterns. Each claims they're separate, competing entities, but they all feed into the same surveillance capitalism ecosystem. The data they collect isn't just about selling you products. It's about predicting and influencing behavior at population scales. What makes this more effective than Orwell's vision is plausible deniability. When surveillance is for your convenience, when tracking is to improve services, when monitoring is for your safety, resistance seems paranoid. Try living without these devices and see how quickly you become unemployable, unsociable, unable to function in modern society. The telescreen isn't watching you because Big Brother commands it. It's watching because you can't imagine life without it. But surveillance is just the foundation. The real control happens through language itself.
But Newspeak in action, how they're shrinking your thoughts.
Orwell's Newspeak wasn't about dumbing down language. It was about making certain thoughts literally unthinkable by removing the words needed to express them. Today's version is more sophisticated. Instead of eliminating words, we redefine them until they mean their opposite. Free speech now means certain approved speech. Safety means censorship. Inclusion means exclusion of wrong thoughts. Diversity means conformity to specific ideas. The words remain, but their meanings shift until communication becomes impossible. When words can mean anything, they mean nothing. Watch how quickly new terms get invented, mandated, then enforced. Notice how certain phrases become mandatory while others become forbidden overnight. The speed of linguistic change isn't organic, it's engineered. When you must constantly update your vocabulary to remain socially acceptable, you spend so much energy on how to speak that you have none left for what to think. This linguistic treadmill keeps you perpetually off balance, always one wrong word away from thought crime. Modern Newspeak operates through euphemism and bureaucratic abstraction. Firing people becomes right-sizing. Propaganda becomes messaging. Censorship becomes content moderation. War becomes kinetic military action. Torture becomes enhanced interrogation. Each euphemism distances you from the reality of what's being described. When language becomes this abstract, moral judgment becomes impossible. How can you oppose something you can't even name accurately? The most insidious aspect is how Newspeak makes you complicit in your own thought limitation. Every time you self-censor, every time you use the correct term despite knowing it obscures truth, every time you avoid certain topics because you lack safe words to discuss them, you're practicing Newspeak. You're training your brain to avoid certain thought patterns. Eventually, you don't just speak Newspeak, you think in it. But controlling language is just preparation for the ultimate goal, controlling thought itself.
Doublethink, the mental gymnastics of modern life.
Doublethink, the ability to hold two contradictory beliefs simultaneously and believe both wasn't a bug in Orwell's system, it was the essential feature. Today, we've mastered doublethink to degrees that would impress the party. We demand privacy while posting everything online. We distrust media while consuming it constantly. We know social media damages mental health while scrolling for hours. We recognize manipulation while insisting we're immune. This isn't hypocrisy, it's trained cognitive dissonance. Modern doublethink appears most clearly in political discourse. People simultaneously believe their side's violence is justified speech while the other side's speech is literal violence. They demand tolerance while practicing intolerance. They fight fascism with fascist tactics. They defend democracy by suppressing democratic debate. Each side sees the other's doublethink clearly while remaining blind to their own. This mutual blindness isn't accidental, it's essential for political control. Corporate doublethink reaches surreal levels. Companies claim to value work-life balance while expecting 24/7 availability. They preach diversity while enforcing conformity. They champion sustainability while pursuing endless growth. They promise privacy while harvesting data. Employees must enthusiastically embrace these contradictions to remain employed. The ability to believe impossible things before breakfast isn't madness, it's a job requirement. But here's Orwell's crucial insight. Doublethink isn't imposed, it's adopted as a survival mechanism. When reality becomes too uncomfortable, when truth becomes too dangerous, when clarity becomes too costly, the mind retreats into protective contradiction. We choose doublethink because single-minded clarity would make life unbearable. We need to believe the lies while knowing they're lies. This mental flexibility isn't weakness, it's adaptation to an insane system. Yet even this psychological contortion pales compared to the ultimate achievement, thought crime.
Thoughtcrime and digital cancel culture.
In 1984, thought crime was thinking anything contrary to party doctrine. Today's version is more sophisticated. It's not just what you think now, but what you ever thought, said, or typed. The internet is a permanent record where every joke, opinion, or position you've ever expressed waits to be weaponized. The memory hole reversed. Instead of erasing the past, we preserve everything, waiting for standards to change, so yesterday's acceptable becomes today's unforgivable. The genius of modern thought crime is its retroactive nature. You can be destroyed not for violating current rules but future ones that don't exist yet. Every tweet, post, or comment is a potential landmine that might explode when cultural standards shift. This creates paralyzing self-censorship. When you know anything you say today might be thought crime tomorrow, the safest strategy is saying nothing substantial. Voluntary silence achieved through fear of future judgment. Digital mob justice replaced the thought police with something more efficient: distributed enforcement. Millions of volunteers scan, screenshot, and report thought crime for free. They compete to find offense, to demonstrate loyalty through denunciation. The punishment isn't Room 101, but social and economic death, job loss, deplatforming, reputation destruction. No trial, no defense, no redemption. The mob decides guilt and executes sentence simultaneously. What makes this system more powerful than Orwell's is its unpredictability. The party had clear, if terrible, rules. Today's thought crime standards shift daily, vary by platform, change by context. What's celebrated in one space is forbidden in another. This inconsistency isn't weakness but strength. When you can't predict what's safe, you censor everything preemptively. You become your own thought police, stricter than any external authority could be. But thought control is just preparation for the ultimate submission.
Room 101 and modern compliance mechanisms.
Room 101 was where Winston faced his worst fear until he betrayed his deepest love. Today's Room 101 isn't a physical place but a psychological state where people are broken until they comply. The tools aren't rats or torture but social isolation, economic pressure, and reputation destruction. Modern systems learned that physical torture creates martyrs, but social torture creates compliance. Nobody wants to be a hero when the cost is everything you've built in life. The process follows Orwell's blueprint precisely. First, isolation, separate the target from support systems. Second, humiliation, public confession, and apology. Third, re-education, mandatory training, sensitivity courses, struggle sessions. Fourth, demonstration of loyalty, denounce others, prove your conversion. The broken person doesn't just comply, they become an enforcer, more zealous than true believers because they must constantly prove their redemption. Modern Room 101 operates through what Orwell called the last inch, the core of self that resists. Today's systems identified that inch, your ability to provide for your family, your social connections, your professional identity. Threaten these, and most people break without any physical coercion. The mortgage becomes the cage, reputation becomes the chain, children's futures become the leverage. You'll say 2 + 2 = 5 when your kid's college admission depends on it. The most disturbing parallel is how people learn to love their oppression. Winston didn't just surrender to Big Brother, he genuinely loved him in the end. Today, the broken don't just comply, they become grateful for education, thankful for growth opportunities, appreciative of being held accountable. They internalize the system's values until resistance becomes literally unthinkable. This isn't fake compliance, but genuine conversion. But the ultimate tool of control is even more fundamental.
The memory hole, information warfare, and historical revision.
Orwell's memory hole destroyed inconvenient facts, allowing the party to claim it had always been right. Today's version doesn't delete information. It floods the zone with alternatives until truth drowns in possibilities. When everything might be true, nothing is certainly true. Search engines and algorithms become the new ministry of truth, not by lying, but by selecting. What appears on page 1 shapes reality more than any propaganda could. What gets demonetized, shadow banned, or fact-checked effectively ceases to exist for most people. The memory hole evolved from destroying information to managing its visibility. If a tree falls in the forest but Google doesn't index it, did it make a sound? Historical revision happens in real time now. News stories get stealth-edited without notation. Headlines change after achieving their impact. Definitions in online dictionaries update to support current arguments. Academic papers get retracted for social rather than scientific reasons. The past becomes fluid, constantly adjusted to support present narratives. We've always been at war with East Asia, and the search results prove it. What makes this system more powerful than Orwell's is its subtlety. The party's edits were obvious lies that citizens pretended to believe. Today's revisions feel organic, backed by experts, supported by data, even if the experts are selected and the data curated. When Wikipedia editors wage secret wars over reality's description, when fact-checkers have political agendas, when historical documents get contextualized into meaninglessness, the memory hole operates openly while remaining invisible. And all of this serves the ultimate purpose.
The eternal war manufacturing enemies and crisis.
Orwell's Oceania was always at war, switching enemies periodically to maintain control through fear. Today's eternal war isn't just military, but cultural, economic, medical, and environmental. There's always a crisis requiring emergency powers, always an enemy justifying surveillance, always a threat demanding compliance. The wars change: terrorism, drugs, virus, climate, misinformation, but the state of emergency remains constant. Crisis becomes the permanent condition. The genius of modern eternal war is its abstraction. Orwell's wars were fictional but concrete: armies, territories, battles. Today's wars are against concepts: terror, drugs, poverty, racism, misinformation. How do you defeat an idea? You don't, which is the point. These wars can never be won, only eternally fought, justifying permanent restrictions, endless budgets, and expanding powers. Victory would be disaster for those managing the conflict. Each crisis follows the same pattern: genuine problem gets identified, fear gets amplified. Solutions get proposed that coincidentally increase control, emergency measures become permanent, new normal gets established. The ratchet only turns one direction: toward more monitoring, more restriction, more centralization. What starts as temporary becomes permanent because the crisis never fully ends, it just morphs into the next threat requiring the same tools. The eternal war's true purpose isn't defeating enemies, but maintaining unity through fear. When people are scared, they accept things they'd normally resist. They trade freedom for safety, privacy for security, autonomy for protection. They police each other, report dissent, demand harder crackdowns. The war isn't meant to be won. It's meant to continue forever, keeping populations in perpetual anxiety that only strong leadership can address. This manufactured helplessness serves the ultimate goal.
The inner party who really controls the system.
Orwell's inner party was a clear elite controlling everything. Today's version is more complex, a loose coordination of interests that appear separate but achieve unified results. Politicians, corporations, media, academia, and NGOs claim independence while mysteriously aligned on crucial issues. They compete on details while agreeing on fundamentals. This isn't conspiracy, but convergent evolution. Systems that challenge power don't survive, so survivors all protect power. The modern inner party doesn't need secret meetings when they share class interests, educational backgrounds, and social circles. They attend the same universities, live in the same neighborhoods, marry each other's children. Their coordination isn't planned, but emergent. Thousands of independent decisions that somehow always protect institutional power. When every decision-maker has similar incentives, conspiracy becomes unnecessary. What Orwell got right was the party's true motivation: power for its own sake. Not money, not ideology, not even comfort, pure power. Today's elites might disagree on politics, but unite on maintaining their position above politics. They'll switch parties, ideologies, even stated values, but never challenge the system that maintains their status. They compete within boundaries, but never question the boundaries themselves. The inner party's genius is making you think you're not ruled by them, but by whoever you oppose. Each side believes the other controls everything, while both serve the same system. Democrats think Republicans run everything. Republicans think Democrats do. Meanwhile, the permanent bureaucracy, corporate structure, and institutional framework continue regardless of elections. The real party isn't red or blue. It's the gray apparatus that persists while politicians perform. But understanding the party means recognizing its ultimate achievement.
Winston's journey: the psychology of resistance and surrender.
Winston Smith's arc from resistance to love for Big Brother maps perfectly onto modern descent cycles. First, the vague unease that something's wrong. then seeking others who might feel the same. The dangerous hope that resistance is possible. The inevitable betrayal and capture. Finally, the complete surrender that becomes genuine love. This isn't just a character journey, it's the psychological blueprint for breaking human resistance. Modern Winstons start by noticing contradictions, questioning narratives, seeking alternative information. They find online communities of like-minded skeptics, feeling less alone. They speak more boldly, share forbidden content, build networks of resistance. Then comes the crackdown, account suspension, job threats, social isolation. Most surrender here, but some persist until they face their Room 101, the personalized pressure point that breaks them completely. The system learned from Winston that crushing rebels creates martyrs, but converting them creates despair. When prominent dissidents publicly recant, when whistleblowers apologize, when resistance leaders embrace what they opposed, it doesn't just remove threats, it demoralizes everyone watching. If even the strongest surrender, what hope do ordinary people have? Psychological warfare breaks spirits more effectively than any physical oppression. But here's Orwell's darkest insight. Winston's love for Big Brother was genuine. The human mind, under enough pressure, doesn't just pretend to believe lies. It genuinely adopts them to end cognitive dissonance. This isn't weakness, but psychological survival. When reality becomes too painful, the mind rewrites itself. Modern systems exploit this through gradual pressure rather than dramatic breaks, slowly shifting people's beliefs until they genuinely hold positions they once opposed. Yet even this isn't the ultimate revelation.
Julia's way, tactical compliance, and private rebellion.
While Winston attempted grand resistance, Julia practiced something more sustainable, outward compliance with private rebellion. She understood what Winston didn't. The system doesn't need your belief, just your behavior. You can think whatever you want as long as you perform correctly. This tactical compliance preserves sanity while avoiding destruction. Julia's way offers a model for surviving modern totalitarianism without losing yourself. Modern Julius masters strategic performance. They mouth the slogans at work while thinking freely at home. They use the required pronouns while knowing biological reality. They attend the diversity training while recognizing its absurdity. They don't openly resist because they understand that symbolic rebellion achieves nothing except personal destruction. Their rebellion is living well despite the system, not dying heroically fighting it. This approach seems cowardly but requires immense strength. Maintaining internal freedom while performing external compliance demands constant vigilance. You must remember what you really believe while saying what you must say. You need to recognize allies through subtle signals while avoiding informants. You have to protect your children from indoctrination while teaching them to perform adequately. It's exhausting, but it's survival. The system actually prefers Julius to Winston's because tactical compliers don't disrupt operations. As long as productivity continues and order maintains, private thoughts remain irrelevant. This creates an unstable equilibrium, millions thinking forbidden thoughts while performing approved actions. The system continues functioning, but its legitimacy erodes. Everyone knows everyone else is pretending, but the performance continues. This hollow compliance might seem like victory for the system, but it contains seeds of its own collapse.
The Proles, why the masses don't revolt.
If there is hope, it lies in the Proles, Winston wrote, but the Proles never revolt. Orwell's genius was recognizing that the masses, despite their numbers, won't organize against power. Today's Proles, the working and middle classes, have more information, communication, and resources than ever, yet remain similarly passive, not from stupidity, but from systemic exhaustion, distraction, and division. The system doesn't need to oppress the Proles, it just needs to manage them. Modern Proles are kept busy with survival, multiple jobs, endless bills, family obligations. They're distracted by entertainment, sports, social media, streaming services. They're divided by identity, race, gender, religion, politics. Every moment that might build solidarity gets disrupted by manufactured conflict. The Proles fight each other horizontally instead of organizing vertically against power. This isn't conspiracy, but system design structures that produce these outcomes get reinforced while alternatives get eliminated. The Proles' power terrifies elites, which is why so much energy goes into preventing organization. Every union gets busted, every movement gets co-opted, every leader gets corrupted or destroyed. When Proles do organize, they're immediately infiltrated, surveilled, and disrupted. The system learned that preventing organization is easier than defeating organized resistance. Keep the Proles isolated, exhausted, and fighting each other, and they'll never threaten power. But here's the paradox. The Proles' disorganization is also their strength. They're too numerous to control directly, too essential to eliminate, too diverse to predict. Their micro-resistances, black markets, informal networks, cultural preservation persist despite everything. The system can manage but never fully control the Proles. Their hope lies not in revolution but in outlasting the system through sheer endurance. Speaking of endurance, let's examine the fundamental fuel of Orwell's dystopia.
2 minutes hate, emotional manipulation, and tribal division.
The 2 minutes hate channeled citizens' frustration toward approved enemies, preventing that anger from targeting the system itself. Today's version runs 24/7 across multiple platforms, offering endless targets for outrage. The enemy changes. Sometimes it's Russians, sometimes Chinese, sometimes the unvaccinated, sometimes the privileged, sometimes the marginalized, but the hate remains constant. This perpetual outrage exhausts citizens emotionally while keeping them divided. Modern hate sessions are more sophisticated than Orwell's crude rallies. They feel organic, emerging from genuine grievances. Social media algorithms amplify outrage because anger drives engagement. News media leads with conflict because fear captures attention. Politicians campaign on enemies because threat motivates voters. The hate feels justified, even righteous. You're not participating in manipulation, you're fighting injustice. This moral framework makes the hate addictive. The genius is how the hate prevents actual change. While people exhaust themselves attacking designated enemies, systemic problems persist unchanged. While tribes war over cultural issues, economic exploitation continues. While citizens police each other's behavior, institutional corruption expands. The hate doesn't challenge power, it disperses energy that might threaten power. Every minute spent hating your fellow citizen is a minute not spent questioning the system. The 2 minutes hate also serves as loyalty test and bonding ritual. Participation proves group membership. The more passionate your hate, the more loyal you appear. Those who don't hate enthusiastically enough become suspects themselves. This creates spirals where each person tries to out-hate others to prove belonging. The hate becomes competitive performance, divorced from any original grievance. But beneath all these control mechanisms lies Orwell's ultimate warning.
The boot in the human face, understanding the power's true nature.
If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. O'Brien's famous quote reveals power's ultimate nature, not a means to an end, but an end in itself. The party doesn't use power to achieve goals, power is the goal. Today's systems similarly pursue control not for any utopian outcome but because control itself is the purpose. Understanding this transforms how you see institutional behavior. Modern power rarely needs the boot because it achieved something more elegant, voluntary submission. People queue for their own surveillance devices, demand their own censorship, police their own thoughts. The boot only appears when someone refuses to step on their own face. This self-oppression is more stable than forced oppression because it doesn't generate resistance. You can't rebel against chains you're fastening yourself. The face under the boot isn't always suffering, sometimes it's smiling. Modern systems learn that happy slaves are better than miserable ones. Give people enough entertainment, comfort, and tribal identity and they'll tolerate remarkable oppression. The boot can stamp harder when the face is distracted by pleasure. This combination of punishment and reward, fear and comfort creates more effective control than either alone. But here's Orwell's crucial insight that most miss. The boot needs the face as much as the face fears the boot. Power requires subjects to dominate. Without resistance to overcome, power has no meaning. This is why systems create enemies when none exist, why they amplify threats, why they need perpetual crisis. The boot stamps forever not despite resistance, but because of it. Power feeds on opposition, which is why traditional resistance often strengthens what it opposes.
Conclusion: your immunity against the Ministry of Truth.
You've just received 13 ways to recognize Orwell's playbook operating in real time. But recognition without action is just sophisticated despair. So here's your practical toolkit for resistance. First, practice what I call linguistic sovereignty. Use precise language, refuse to adopt Newspeak, and when someone redefines words, politely ask them to clarify using older definitions. Second, maintain cognitive independence, read banned books, seek primary sources, and always ask, who benefits from me believing this? Third, embrace tactical privacy. You don't need to broadcast every thought. Some resistance is keeping your mind as the last free territory. The most powerful lesson from 1984 isn't about avoiding dystopia. It's about recognizing that human nature includes both Winston's need for truth and the party's hunger for power. These forces perpetually struggle within individuals and societies. You can't eliminate the boot, but you can refuse to be the face. You can't destroy Big Brother, but you can stop loving him. You can't prevent doublethink, but you can catch yourself doing it. This isn't about becoming a hero. It's about remaining human in dehumanizing systems. Here's what Orwell understood that modern pessimists miss. The very fact that they need such elaborate control mechanisms proves that human resistance never fully dies. If people naturally loved slavery, why would they need such sophisticated systems to maintain it? The boot stamps forever precisely because the human spirit refuses to stay down. Every generation rediscovers freedom, which is why every generation faces new forms of control. This isn't depressing. It's proof that the totalitarian dream of permanent victory remains impossible. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, read 1984 if you haven't, reread it if you have, but this time with today's examples in mind. Share this video with someone who's noticed something's wrong but lacks the vocabulary to articulate it. Comment below with modern examples of these patterns I might have missed. Let's crowdsource awareness. But most importantly, remember that understanding these mechanisms is your immunity. They work best on those who don't know they exist. You now know. You can now see. And once you see the cage, you're already partially free. Next week, we explore Huxley's Brave New World, where the prison is so comfortable you'll beg to stay locked inside. Until then, stay vigilant, stay human, and remember, freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 = 4. If that is granted, all else follows.